Bombshell tonight in the Nolan Wells investigation. Tonight, the timeline seemingly blows up. This as Nolan's mother is investigated. Why? And tonight, possibly even more important, where is Nolan's phone? Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
From the people we've talked to, it sounds like he chose to stay on the island with the assumption that he was going to ride back to the mainland with someone else. That was Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter, July 6, 2026, the day 18-year-old Nolan Wells's body washed up on the northwest shoreline of Horn Island. A statement of official position. A statement of apparent clarity.
We want the truth about what happened to Nolan Wells.
A Bertram boat was seen leaving shortly afterward at a high rate of speed. Pretty certain Nolan Wells was part of a group that was, quote, almost fighting around 5 p.m.
I'm on the side of finding out why everybody got back to the mainland except Nolan Wells.
I don't think they
In a statement that, within hours, would begin to crack under the weight of everything it didn't explain. Imagine a single thread pulled from a fabric that looks whole, and watching the entire weave unravel, one fiber at a time. That is the Nolan Wells case. A 4th of July boat trip, a group of friends, a barrier island off the Mississippi coast, and one young man who never came home. Before we go deeper into what the records actually show, make sure you're subscribed to the Crime Infinity, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The official timeline, as presented by law enforcement, was straightforward. Nolan traveled by boat to Horn Island, a federally protected barrier island accessible only by private vessel. His friends said he chose to stay behind. They left without him. He drowned. Case closed. But the evidence never closed. It yawned open. Nolan's mother, Christine Wonsley, had tracked her son's phone using Life 360 and Snapchat after he failed to return. She located the device not on Horn Island, but on land, at a friend's house. When she got it back that night, she did what any mother would do. She opened it. She searched for the last day of her son's life. And what she found, or rather, what she didn't find, became the detail that made her family stop trusting the easy answer. There was nothing sent out while Nolan was at Horn Island. No Snapchat history. No social media posts. No digital footprint from the hours before he disappeared.
I don't have to have the phone to know what's on the phone if it's in the cloud. It looks like an iPhone to me. So my argument with Officer Tatum is academic. It doesn't matter if I can get it from the cloud. So Nolan's phone missing. So what? I can download it. I can get it.
Data will exist in the cloud if he's syncing to iCloud and third-party applications. However, having physical access to the phone is where the databases exist that will have the truth on deletion. So you really need to get a full file system extraction of his phone as quickly as possible. So if it's not handed over to authorities now, it needs to be, because this was over a month ago now.
Do you have to have the phone to do the extraction? What about the cloud?
Cloud data is different, and there's a lot of information there. There could be unique information in the cloud that's been removed from the phone, if anything was removed, but it's best to have both cloud and the phone to paint the entire.
For an 18-year-old who, by his mother's account, recorded almost everything he did, that absence was not a void. It was a signal. But here's where the timeline begins to fracture. According to his friends, they left Horn Island at 4:30 p.m. They also claim someone later told them they saw Nolan on the island at 6 p.m. That's a 90-minute window where the official story and the witness accounts don't align. And when timelines don't align, evidence becomes the only honest witness. Then came the video. Newly released footage, obtained by the Officer Tatum show, appears to show Nolan's friends on the boat being towed away from Horn Island. Without him, 7 people can be seen on board. Nolan is nowhere in the frame. That footage didn't prove foul play, but it did prove one thing. The narrative that Nolan simply chose to stay behind was not the full picture. The friends had called a private towing service after their boat started taking on water because of a failing bilge pump. A distress call was made. The caller said the boat was sinking in 31 feet of water. "I want to get this boat unsank and turned back," the caller said. The caller also confirmed that no one above the age of 21 was on the boat. That detail matters because it frames the entire event as a group of teenagers, alone on a sinking vessel, making decisions that would later be scrutinized frame by frame. The friends have not cooperated at all. That was the assessment from Tyler Cox, the attorney representing 3 of the young men on the boat. He later said he had reason to believe the family had not turned over Nolan's phone, and he was willing to bet his reputation on it.
I don't think they've cooperated at all. They do not have Nolan's phone. They haven't had access to Nolan's phone. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department has it. So how can you say that there's text missing or there's photographs missing? Our boys had no reason to do anything with Nolan's phone other than give it back to Christine and her friends later that night. So anything about missing text messages or Snapchats is completely false.
Big question. That is Tyler Cox representing the so-called friends of Nolan on Horn Island. And if he's claiming that no one see the phone, how does he know that something's not missing? So that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Let's hear that one more time from our friend Dan Abrams.
I don't think they've cooperated at all. They do not have Nolan's phone. They haven't had access to Nolan's phone. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department has it. So how can you say that there's text missing or there's photographs missing? Our boys had no reason to do anything with Nolan's phone other than give it back to Christine and her friends later that night.
But the family's legal team, led by civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, pushed back hard. They said they remained ready and willing to cooperate in arranging a joint forensic inspection of the phone. They pointed to a July 15th meeting with the district attorney where they agreed to a jointly coordinated examination. They asked for a protocol, a chain of custody, and an agreement on what happens to the data. They said they had yet to receive those details. And they noted that the DA's office set a 48-hour deadline for the family to hand over the phone while they were out of state. Setting a 48-hour deadline while this family was out of state is not a good faith path to answers, the family's legal team said.
Well, from my understanding, authorities do not have, and the family have not been cooperating with authorities to give the phone over. According to the testimony or written statement from the lawyer that represents the family, the Nolan Wells family, he had made mention that he's prepared to cooperate, but they have not cooperated yet, which is very interesting to me. You want to find out what happened to your son. You would think you will be doing everything you can to cooperate. I can't judge her. I don't know what's in their mind, but it just seems to be very off-putting for them not to at least give the phone over and do what exactly they told the world they were going to do, and that is to allow a forensic extraction of his phone. Therefore, the world can see if there is things that have been deleted. I think Tyler Cox is very clear about what he's saying, that the boys had nothing to do with it. So if there is anything missing from the phone, it had nothing to do with them. Now, I'll add this. When you look at what Christine said.
Brandon, whoa, bit. I'm going to go right back to what you're saying, but you're saying a lot, and I want to address each thing so we don't leave anything out. Number one, you just stated that, basically. Correct me, you can paraphrase this any way you want to. It looks really bad for Nolan's family not to hand over the phone. Do you have any independent knowledge they have not handed over the phone?
According to their lawyer that wrote a statement, and the statement was, we're prepared to cooperate, but that was as of the 11th. Therefore, they have not cooperated. Tyler Cox has made mention that he don't believe they cooperated whatsoever. He don't believe they cooperated whatsoever as well. So
extrapolating. You're taking their words, Tatum, that their words that they're prepared to cooperate to mean they haven't handed over the phone. Isn't that true?
I'm putting everything together, right? We have Tyler Cox that's coming out and saying that he has no indication whatsoever they've cooperated. The family has not come out and said that there's any findings. And then also the attorney that represents the family is saying that we haven't sent or gave the phone over, but we're willing to. And that was as of the 11th. No, so it appears that there's no indication
that is the heart of the conflict. Not whether the phone will be examined, but who controls the examination, who controls the narrative, who controls the evidence. The friends have not cooperated at all. That refrain echoes through every piece of this case. But cooperation is not a one-way street. The friends voluntarily handed over their phones to the FBI. They submitted to computer voice stress analysis, not polygraphs, as initially claimed, but a different methodology. The family, by contrast, has not turned over Nolan's phone, but they have also not refused. They have asked for a process. And in a case where every action is being parsed for meaning, process can look like obstruction to some and prudence to others. The independent autopsy commissioned by the family found the cause and manner of death to be undetermined, pending further investigation. The pathologist, Dr. Roger Mitchell, could not rule out foul play.
It could be that he did drown, but that does not rule out foul play. It doesn't rule it in. It doesn't rule it out. Explain.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, drowning, just so you understand, if somebody, say for instance, has a head injury, right, and they fall into a body of water, all right, that can lead to drowning, right? Because they might still be unconscious but capable of breathing. And of course, if you're in a water environment, you're going to be taking on water. I've worked cases where water has actually been weaponized as a means to take someone's life. But I've also worked, Nancy, a lot of cases involving accidental drownings where people fall over the side of boats. I've even had homeless guys that have passed out face down in mud puddles and have drowned. You never can predict, how any of this is going to happen. All we can do in the morgue, the medical legal community, is assess what we see at that moment in time. When we're trying to look at the lungs, we're trying to look actually at the inner ear. That's one of the areas that we go to with drowning. And we try to assess the brain as well, because you can have the brain begin to swell in these certain circumstances. So there is a huge recipe that goes into this when you're trying to do a fatal diagnosis here. When you're trying to come up and make this assessment, you want to do it necessarily. I think it's best you try to do this independent of maybe what the police are saying, what friends are saying. You objectively look at the science of what's before you, and then after that, you go back in and factor in some of the circumstantial information.
You're seeing video given to us by Officer Tatum's show. Look at all the people out there. Speaking of witnesses, Joe Scott, you dead on. Thanks, Tatum. Because you know what? Somebody saw something, somebody knows something, and they are not coughing it up. And we're going to keep on until they...
He noted that portions of Nolan's neck and throat structures were missing, something common after an initial autopsy, but something that prevented a complete examination. The state autopsy has been completed, but the results have been sealed and will be withheld until a grand jury can review them.
Back to Officer Brandon Tatum. He's the star of The Officer Tatum on YouTube. So, Officer Tatum, let me understand. I don't know, and I don't think you know, where Nolan Wells' phone is. The family may have it, or it may have been seized or handed over to law enforcement. And if it hasn't, then they, law enforcement, need to issue a warrant for it. It's really not hard. You've executed warrants before, I'm sure. So have I.
Well, you're going to have a reason to get a warrant. And if it's a criminal investigation and they believe that they can find evidence of a crime, if they had access to his phone, I could see them getting a warrant to extract his phone outside of the parent's will. But if you're looking at a potential drowning and there is no criminal element involved and the parents are refusing to give over the phone, they don't believe it's any material evidence there. No, I'm saying this is what the law enforcement agency...
these questions anymore.
Nancy,
I'm
this is
not
what the
saying
law...
they're
I'm giving you a law
refusing
enforcement perspective.
Nobody said Nolan, you know what, we're really chasing our tails here. We don't know that Nolan's family has refused to hand over the phone. My simple question to you is, law enforcement, if they want the phone, get a warrant for the phone. Go get the phone. Or
Nancy,
communicate to the family, give me the phone.
Nancy, there could be two things afoot. I'm not a part of the investigation, but I can see if they haven't gotten the phone yet, it's because they don't need the phone and they don't want the phone. It's not there of evidentiary value if there is no suspect here. If it was a drowning and there's indications of a drowning, they may not need it, Nancy, so they're not going to go get it. If they need it, they would have already had it a month ago.
Stop. Okay. Brandon Tatum, are you a medical examiner?
No, I'm not.
Okay, because what I have been told, and correct me if I'm wrong, don't smile at me. It's not working.
I'm trying.
From what I understand, let's go to the expert. Joe Scott Morgan is joining me, Joseph Scott Morgan, Professor of Forensics, Jacksonville State University, world-class criminal program, author of Blood Beneath My Feet on YouTube, star of a hit series, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan, death investigator, over 10,000 death investigations under his belt. Joe Scott, it's my understanding, correct me if you know differently, or Susan Hendricks, Dave Mack, jump in, please, feet first. Both medical examiners have stated to the effect, one says, undetermined now, because we're waiting on, I think, toxicology. We don't know the answer. The second one has said, undetermined cause of death. That's a yes, no. Isn't that true? We don't have a cause of death yet.
That has been made public. No. They said last week.
So
Hang on.
Tatum,
they said last week. They said last week that the
District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath confirmed that every death in the county, except those of natural causes and non-criminal car wrecks, is presented to a grand jury. That is standard procedure. But standard procedure, in a case saturated with suspicion, does not feel standard. It feels like a wall. The Congressional Black Caucus has now called for a federal review. Representative Yvette D. Clark wrote that the scant information from local investigators has her and other members concerned. The lack of answers thus far continues to fuel speculation and grief, Clark wrote. Neither the Wells family nor the public should be left to fill an information vacuum with speculation. That is the tragedy of this case. The information vacuum has already been filled, not by evidence, but by speculation, by AI-generated content, by conspiracy theories, by attacks on Nolan's mother, a nurse who has been targeted with negative reviews online.
Now, to my question. Don't you understand why people are suspicious? Because Nolan's separated from his phone, which no teen does. I get it, why he didn't have it in the water. I get that. I dive, I swim. I just went swimming with the dolphins with my twins. And yes, my phone was on the boat. But then I got it. I didn't let the boat take off without it. So at least you can admit that's why people are curious. I'm curious.
Nancy, I think it's because people are out putting out misinformation and they don't have the totality of circumstances because they haven't heard from the boys, didn't watch the interview and all of this stuff, and they feel that it's convoluted. It's very straightforward to me and very clear in many areas that the boys are saying they did not have access. Christine, Nolan's mother, is not saying unequivocally that things were deleted. She was surprised that things were not present. Therefore, she insinuated that things may have been deleted. But she did not really say that the phone was deleted. And the fact that they did not communicate with both sides, meaning that I wish that the Nolan Wells family would have communicated with these boys instead of me, would have talked to their lawyers instead of me, then therefore they could have gotten a good perspective. The boys made mention in the interview that I did with them that they told Christine, Nolan's mother, that they had his phone and his keys in their possession. Therefore, she came to get them. They turned them over. They have no access to his codes. They have no reason to delete his phone. They're claiming there's nothing that was deleted. They gave a fair explanation as to why he left the phone on the boat. Nolan wasn't the only individual to leave the phone on the boat. He wasn't the only black person to leave the phone on the boat. So that, to me, dispels the racial component. He was with them. Multiple boats came out. Traditionally, if you don't leave on a boat you came on, you can leave on another boat. They're all going to the same location. So it's not that bizarre that he left his phone. The phone was returned to Nolan. These are best friends of Nolan. They hang out almost every day.
Hold on just a sec.
He spent the night over their house.
They are just sick. Evil people who would attack this mother and this father for simply saying we want to know what happened to our child, Crump said. And through it all, the central question remains unanswered. What happened to Nolan Wells? The friends have not cooperated at all. That refrain is not a verdict. It is an observation. An observation that the friends have spoken through attorneys, through statements, through interviews. An observation that the family has spoken through attorneys, through pleas, through a private investigation. An observation that both sides are talking past each other, and the only voice that cannot speak is Nolan's. The boat has not been searched by cadaver dogs.
Tatum, the boat. Has the boat been searched by cadaver dogs and scent dogs?
The boat, from my understanding, has not been searched, and the cadaver dogs were made available for Benjamin Crump to utilize them to do a search on the boat. They refused.
No. Crump is not supposed to use the dogs.
There is no reason to search
everything on Crump.
Listen, Nancy, there's no reason if there's not any evidence of a murder, there's no reason for them to use the cadaver dog. That's how this works.
True.
There's none of these individuals they do not have any expectation that there was any murder that occurred. It's just other people are putting that out to the world. The police department is not investigating the murder. These boys are not suspects.
I agree they're not suspects. They're not persons of interest. They're not suspects. They haven't been charged. But
to believe after interviewing
Crump
60 people that he was ever on the boat.
The search of the Triton,
He's not
his boat.
Ordering it. He's not ordering it. The cadaver dogs were made available if he wanted to. No. They availed themselves to him and said, would you like us to search the boat for you?
You just said that about Nolan Wells' mom. Now you said, I almost hate to do this to you. Almost. Tatum, you just said when Crump says we're available and ready, you meant, well, that's no, they haven't handed over the boat. But now you're saying the friends say our boat's available and ready, and I'm not going to tear you a new one because the law enforcement is the one that needs to go and search the boat.
Nancy,
it ain't rocket science.
The people who had questions about this, because it's definitely not law enforcement, it was Benjamin Crump. They wanted to get to the bottom. They don't trust law enforcement.
There's not a grand jury? This isn't going to grand jury?
I'm saying initially before grand jury.
Because if it's going to grand jury, then there are questions.
Initially before grand jury, when this first started, and Benjamin Crump brought up all of these questions, and they availed themselves to him and said, would you like for us to search the boat? We'll grant the cadaver dogs for you to go and look at the boat. And he refused. And this is why I'm saying it does not appear.
Give authority to search the boat.
He can. The boys are cooperating.
I want you to run over to Tatum's house and sniff the hell out of it, because it's your house.
Come on over. I would say no. I said come on over. The cadaver dogs are made available, but then Benjamin Crump said, "Well, we don't want it." That's the problem here.
Wait a minute.
The phone has not been forensically examined. The autopsy results remain sealed. The grand jury has not yet convened. Every piece of evidence that could answer the question is still sitting in a box, waiting for a process that neither side fully trusts. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old college football player, a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. His father said the trip was meant to be his last hurrah before returning to football camp. He had cooked dinner for his parents on July 3rd, hugged his mom, said, "I love you," and left. That was the last time she spoke to him. His body was found on July 6th, washed up on the northwest shoreline of Horn Island, near where he was last seen. Authorities believe he drowned. His family does not accept that explanation, given that he was a strong swimmer. The evidence does not shout in this case. It whispers. A missing phone, a deleted Snapchat history, a distress call from a sinking boat, a timeline that doesn't add up, a body found where it shouldn't have been, an autopsy that can't rule out foul play, a grand jury that hasn't yet seen the evidence, and a family caught between grief and a system they don't fully trust. The question that follows this case everywhere is simple. If the friends had nothing to hide, why did the timeline shift? Why did the story change? Why did Nolan's phone end up on land while he remained on the island? Why was there no digital record of his final hours? Those are not accusations. They are questions. And questions, in the absence of answers, become their own kind of evidence. If you want to understand this case, read the public filings. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department has released statements. The United Cajun Navy has released a 22-page report detailing the timeline of events. The district attorney's office has confirmed that the autopsy results will be withheld until a grand jury review. Read the reports, study the timeline, and then ask yourself the question that no document can answer. Why did it take 40 days to agree on examining the phone? The grand jury will decide what happens next.
Do not want to convict or hang an innocent person. All I want to know is what happened. And I haven't even gotten to the CETO call. Is it real? Is it fake? I'd like somebody, i.e. you, if you have the original, to put it out there. But that's it. Whoa, don't go off on that. Susan Hendricks joining us. Susan Hendricks is a veteran investigative journalist. She's the author of a bestseller, Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi. She exhaustively researched and investigated the double murder of 2 little girls and came to the truth. Susan Hendricks, you've heard all of the evidence that we've got tonight, and there's so much more we haven't gotten to. I want to hear where things stand now. Is there a grand jury? Is there going to be a grand jury? Where is the phone? Was the boat searched? Just enlighten me in any way that you can, Susan Hendricks.
There is a grand jury. They are investigating. You mentioned Delphi. There's hints of this to me, meaning it's being tried in the court of public opinion. And it's troubling to me that we talk about the mom and we don't know that she didn't hand over the phone. So now she has to go on defense. And as Officer Tatum said, the boat has not been searched by cadaver dogs. So we know that. Grand jury is investigating. And the parents have to suffer through this. And also, all attorneys have to say is, I don't think it's my understanding that she didn't hand over the phone. She wants to know what happened to her son. She wants to know, why wouldn't she hand over the phone? It's just obscene that she has to suffer through this even more.
Well, you hit the nail on the head right there, and you answered a very serious and critical question, and that is, there is a grand jury. Everything Tatum is saying and everything I'm saying, you know that phrase in the Bible, Tatum? We are now looking through a mirror darkly. We're looking through a very murky, grimy glass because we don't know. You are saying one thing. I'm questioning that because we don't know. And in the middle of it all, we have got a dead body of Nolan Wells. I don't want to get tangled up in arguments and vitriol that detracts from finding the truth. And I don't take anybody at face value. I don't suspect anybody, and I suspect everybody. I can't tell who's telling the truth. But we will, God help us, find out what happened to this young man. If you know, or you think you know anything, please dial 228-769-3063 tonight. We remember American hero Sergeant Kyle Robert McKee, U.S. Army, killed in the line of duty, leaving behind a beautiful wife turned widow, Lauren, and 3 children, Jackson, Canaan, and Ella. American hero Sergeant Kyle Robert McKee. Thank you to our guests, but especially to you for being with us tonight in our search for the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. Nancy Gray signing off for tonight, but I'll see you tomorrow night. And until then, good night, friends. Hi, guys. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. And if you're on the go, please join us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all our content, where we, in our way, seek justice.
But the court of public opinion has already reached its verdict without seeing the evidence. And that is the real tragedy of the Nolan Wells case. Not that we don't know what happened, but that we may never agree on what the evidence means. If this case has shown you anything about the gap between official narratives and the questions they leave behind, like and share this video. Subscribe to the Crime Infinity, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. And turn on notifications, because when the grand jury finally speaks, you won't want to miss it.